Hello and welcome to this video on adding an app page with direct Dynamics 365 integration for Haiko. If you're not sure what Haiko is, it's essentially a no-code customer-facing mobile app for anyone with Dynamics 365. If you go onto YouTube and search for Haiko app, you'll see a couple of our explainer videos there. I recommend taking a look. One of them shows features of the product, what it can do, some problems it can solve, and the other one showing how you get to market. The aim of this tutorial is to demonstrate the creation of a page to collect data via our customer-facing Haiko app, a page being essentially a form. We'll try and give some context to this. So we have our fictional company, TG Solicitors. They use Haiko to power their customer-facing mobile app, the contents and appearance of which is configured all from Dynamics 365. They have a new requirement. They want their customers to be able to submit queries about their services from the mobile app. And when they submit those, they want it to appear as a lead record in Dynamics 365 sales. In order to achieve this, there's a number of steps you're going to have to take within Haiko. This is all happening within Dynamics 365 where all of the configuration happens. So they'll need to add an endpoint to determine the direct integration with Dynamics. We're going to add menu item to appear in the side menu and home page. We're going to add a list to filter the leads that the customer sees on the app. Obviously we don't want one customer seeing another customer's leads. We're going to add a page with fields. That's going to allow us to basically define the form and what the person can and can't enter. And when we've done all that, we're going to publish our changes, and that's going to manifest in the mobile app. So the first thing we need to do is add a Haiko endpoint. Just to remind you, a Haiko endpoint determines where data collected in the app is sent. At present we have 4 different kinds of endpoints. There's the direct Dynamics 365 record endpoint. That means when the person hits submit, a call is made directly to Dynamics to create a record. That's the one I'm going to be covering in the tutorial today. We also have endpoints for sending data to a Dynamics 365 action, an Azure Flow or Logic app, which is very, very powerful, and also to a Microsoft AI bot, so the person can have a kind of interactive chat with an agent. But today we'll be focusing on the direct Dynamics 365 record. In fact, let us go ahead and create an endpoint now. Okay, so let's go and create our Haiko endpoint. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Haiko app. I'm going to go down to endpoints, and we need a new endpoint. Okay, let's give it a meaningful name, service enquiry. Spell that properly. Let's give it a unique name. Okay, let's pick our app type. So we're going to go for Dynamics 365 direct integration. And the schema URI for this is lead, because we want this to create a lead record. Okay, this feels not really relevant for what we need now, so we'll stick with that, and then we will save and close. Okay, so now we've created our endpoint. The next thing we need to do is create our menu item. So the menu item is something that will appear in the left navigation of an app. That's typical app navigation. It'll also appear on the home page as an image which can be clicked. So let's go back to Dynamics and create a menu item. Okay, so let's click new. Let's give it a name. Okay, I hope I've had caps lock turned off. Okay, we're going to specify our app. Okay, we need to specify an icon to use. That's the bit that's going to appear here. If you want to look at the icons, you can select icons in the left navigation there, and you will actually be able to see the images here on the side. So let's just go with the help for that one. Okay, in terms of images, that's the part that we're going to see here on the home page. So let us find an image. I mean, typically I guess whoever deals with the appearance part of the app would make some images available to you online. For now, we'll just pin something off Google Images. Let's use this. Okay. The label is the text that the customers will actually see on the app. And let's put that right at the end of the list. Okay, so now we've got our menu items sorted. So now we're going to get down to the slightly more complex parts, and we need to add a page. So the pages will render a number of fields and allow the customers to enter the data. I guess they're comparable to forms, what we call forms in Dynamics 365. Now this next image shows, I guess, the components of a page. So we have the idea of sections, which you can see is the bigger text here. These fields fall within this section. We've got the fields here. We've got description, issue, details in this example. We have certain validations that we set on the field. So you can see here requires 8 characters. This one's required, and so on. And these appear in the classic and familiar way that people are used to in mobile apps. We have the submit button, of course, so we're going to set this page to allow users to create records, and that will send it to the endpoint that we created earlier. This image here on the right shows this field, which is an options field, and it allows us to pick one of several options, and that will appear depending on whether you have an Apple or Android device as some kind of list. So let us go back to the app and let's create page. Okay, let's link that to the menu item that we just created. Let's link that to the endpoint we created. Okay, we're not going to allow or enable media or messages for this one. We will cover that in a different video. Okay, so let us save that. So, as we mentioned, on a Haiko page we need a number of fields, and we will do that by adding fields into the fields tab of the new page that we've just created. When we add fields, we're really telling it fields on the form and how that links to fields on the entity in Dynamics 365, because this is a direct integration. So you can see here we've got customer, and that's going to be our contacts, because remember the contacts are authenticated within the app, so we know who they are at the point they submit this record, so we can populate that field. Another one we've got here is topic, and we can see that is the subject field within Dynamics. So let us create that. Okay, we can call that whatever we want. Let's say topic. Is it CRM field? Yes, it is. Let's go for string single. Let's put a minimum character of a minimum length of 8 characters, a maximum 20. We want this just as a kind of brief description. As we saw just before, the schema name is subject. We'll create that afterwards. The order, we want this to be the first field, but let's just put 5 so we can put something before if needed. Okay, in the app we want this to appear as brief description. Is it editable? Yes it is. Is it required? Yes. I'm going to show on create and on view as well. So the create is the bit when you're submitting the form, the view is when you go back to look at that particular record. So we do need a section, so let's create a section for the page. Don't have one yet. Let's give it a distinguishable name. Services details section. Let's go for service inquiry. And let's put that at 0. that's our news section. Okay, so that's as simple as it is to add such a field. Now, if we go back to our form, we can see we've got something here called lead source. So, what is lead source? Lead source is basically telling us where that lead originated from. And if we look at that field, apologies for the performance, this is Dynamics Online, this is it's not a production environment, and somewhat anecdotally it does seem that they do slow things down at the weekend a bit. Okay, so this is an option set. We can see here there's a whole bunch of things where it can come from, but all of these are coming from the app, so we want to include that field, but we don't want the user to see it, we just want that to be populated regardless. So let's take an example with that one. Okay, so let's go back to our page. New Haiko field. So this is our lead source. Okay, there's a CRM field, yes it is. It's an option set. We don't need to bother with any of those. The schema name, as we saw, was lead source code. Service details section. Yeah, let's put this at the end, doesn't matter because I'm not going to see it anyway. Again, they're not going to see this either. Is it editable? Yes it is. Is it required? Yes it is. Actually no, it's not editable, it is required, but we're not going to show it on create, and we're not going to show it on view either. It's going to be a hidden field, and it's a great way to just pass values in the background. So let us click save. If we go back to that, we can click our edit again. We can see that the option that we need, we actually need one of the options, is this one. Okay, and actually that's going to be our default value. So we want it to be populated even though they don't select it. Let's save that, and we do need to add that as an option as well. Okay, so we've defined a field, it's an option set, and we're going to pre-populate it so it's always set to that. Okay, let's go back to pages. So we're still with service inquiry. Let's have a look at our lead form. What else do we need? Okay, so we've got also our services. We want the people to be able to pick what particular service type it is. So HKO services is the not very well named field. And again, we're looking at an option set. So here you can see that we have a number of options when it eventually comes up. And the point is, again, we don't want to display everything, and we don't necessarily want to display it in the way it's shown. We're going to go with just 3 of them, the values being shown, so we're going to go for not specified, family and tenancy. Okay, so let's add another option set field onto this page. Service. Okay, is it CRM field? Yes it is. Again, we're looking at an option set. I think we said it was called HK underscore services. Okay, and we're going to go and pick an order. Actually, I think maybe we should put this one first. Okay, so let's put this as number 3. And we want to say service type. Is it editable? Yes, it is. It's required. True for all of that. Okay. We decided we wanted to add a number of options, so we got not specified. But we don't want to say not specified. Doesn't really mean much to a customer, so we're going to say unsure. We're going to add family. Tenancy, let's call it property instead. And the value for that was that's the options on that field. Okay, and let us say that it should default to unsure. Okay. So now we've defined 3 fields. We've got service type, which is the customer picks. We've got the description with the enter. We made that a required field, and we've set some validations on it, and also we've got source, which we're passing in the background. That should hopefully be hidden. Okay, now we've defined some pages. The next thing that we want to do really is to define the list. So let's go back to our thing here and look at Haiko lists. So Haiko lists, they're filterable and they show the records from dynamics. So once a person has selected to see our new type, which we're calling service inquiries, we'll see a list of the existing ones in here. And we're going to tell it that they should be able to submit, and then therefore they get this big plus symbol that allows them to add a new record. I guess they're comparable to views in Dynamics, and we'll see a number of things here, including how we define this kind of main heading part, how we define which field in Dynamics becomes that main heading part, which field becomes this kind of description-y type part here, and also we'll see how to configure what we call the icon mappings. So we want a different icon of a particular color to show for a particular type of this record, and we'll define which field determines that type. Okay, so let's go and add our new list. Okay, so one thing, as mentioned, that we need to do is to tell it how to deal with icon mapping. So what makes sense in this context really is to use the services. So all the services with all the entries in the list with the same type of service will have the same icon. So let's tell it that that's the field, and let's just use. Should we use help or? Okay, let's just add a default person there. Okay, there's some more stuff that we need to add before this is done. Okay, so the title field is going to be telling it which field in the Dynamics record is this one. Okay, so I think it makes sense to use subject because that was kind of the brief description. The main text field is going to be this, so let's go ahead and use description for that. Date field Let's use created on. Okay, so when we pull back records, sometimes with things like this, and especially like service desk cases and so on, they have the idea of kind of open records and close records. So we're going to tell it what field to base that on, and we're going to tell it what the inactive values are for that. There might be one or more, so we know that one is inactive. Okay. So let's see if we can save that now. Okay, right. Another important part is the filter. So how do we tell the app what to bring back? So if this person has logged into the app, they want to bring back a certain subset of records. We don't necessarily want to bring back everything on the system. So the way we do that, and it makes this very easy for us, is to just basically do an advanced find. So we're looking for leads. And all we need to get right is the filter criteria. It doesn't matter which columns we pick or anything. The fields that we picked and defined on both the list entity and also on the page, that will determine what actually manifests in the app. But on this one, we said that we're gonna it's going to be based on the customer. You can put absolutely anything I want there for now, and it's intelligent enough to replace that. It doesn't need to be a contact though. Okay, and let's just say that we want to only get the ones created within the last year. I can't see that at the moment. Oh, there it is. Let's have a look at our fetch XML. Let's copy that fetch XML. Okay, so as I said, the important part here is the entity name and the filter part. So we're saying the customer ID equals. We can leave all of that. It's going to be clever enough to replace that when it makes the calls with the actual correct values, and this part will still apply. The one thing we do need to tell it is which field is the customer ID field. So we're going to say customer ID, and that will tell it to replace this value with whoever's actually making the query. Okay, we want to allow submit. That means we want to allow people to add new records, not just view a list from Dynamics. Where this will be no would be if it's just people viewing data. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, so now we need to do the icon mapping. So if we go back to our services, what we're essentially going to do is tell it for a particular value. We're going to pick a particular icon and a particular color for that icon. So we can do something like this. It will populate the name itself. So what we're saying here is the option set label. Oops, sorry. Sorry, that one was tenancy. We call it whatever we want there. Property. That option set value and colors. We can just use the American spelling there. Any kind of color picker sort of thing. We can specify color, and we just need to copy that hex code. Gosh, I lost my window now. Property. It's home. Yeah. Okay, and that's how we create icon mappings. So we would need one of those for each of the possible options. Again, we've specified the default there. I won't bore you with going through all of them. So what I'll do is I'll create all those and we'll publish this and see how it looks within the app. Okay, so I've gone away and created any extra fields and mappings that were needed. Let's have a quick review over what we've done. So the first thing we did was created our service inquiry endpoint, telling it that it's a direct 365 integration. Going to the type lead. We then went ahead and created our menu item for service inquiry, and that's going to tell it what to show in the side menu here, the order that's going to appear relative to the other menu items. We've also defined a icon to appear in the left navigation on the customer app, and an image to use on the home page as well. We then went on to create our service inquiry page. We haven't enabled media or messages on this one. Within the page, we added a number of fields. I think I've added an extra one here since we first did it. We've set our services, something they can enter, also a subject and a description. I've added a string type multi here. As you can see, this is basically the same as the other ones. Multi will put it in a box. We've called it details on there, and we've given a bigger max length. We also added our lead source, which, if you remember, was a hidden field, so we're not showing it on the view or the create, but it's a way for us to pass a value in as record created, saying that it came from the app. And within these various option set ones, we have defined our options, which, as we saw, we just basically get the option set values from the CRM customizations. We can specify the labels we want rather than the ones that just come out of CRM, gives us an extra level of ability to customize. We then went on to define our list, and I think that's still in the background there. That's the bit that's going to define all of the stuff here that they see when they click service inquiries, and what that consists of is telling it can submit. We tell it the field that's going to be used to pick the icon. For each of those icons, we're going to, or for each of those service types, we're going to tell it use this icon in this particular color. And very importantly as well, we have our filter. And if you remember, the filter we use just by creating an advanced find and making sure that we have the correct filter, the correct entity type, and we tell it that the customer ID field, that's the one that defines who our app user is. So now with all that, what we need to do is push those changes out. So at the moment, these changes exist in the app, and they won't really get picked up by the Haiko integration engine, the bit that joins the app and Dynamics 365 until the service is restarted. So what we have is a way to force that. And if we click the app there, or go into it, I won't go into it because it has some of the login details and so on. We can select a flow, we can click refresh engine, and that will cause it to update in the cloud. Now, anyone who worked with older versions of the various internet accelerators and portals and so on will have the concept of unpublished changes and published changes. With changes in DevOps, how this works, and also the Haiko making this very easy for us to provide dev and test images for you. We don't believe that's necessary anymore. We think you'd have a whole other app with the where all the test and dev is done, and then we will provide migration schemas to actually push that data into live, and that's our preferred method of doing it. So now what we'll do is I'll plug my phone in so you can see it on the computer, and we'll bring up the app and we'll see the changes we made appearing in our app. Okay, so go got this handy app which should allow me to show what's going on my phone within the browser here. That's better. Okay, so we have our TG Solicitors app here. Let me pick that. Okay, and the first thing we can see is our new service inquiry item down at the bottom there. Remember, that's the image that we picked from Google Images. Also, we should see that in the left navigation there. You can see service inquiry at the bottom. If you remember, we use the order place at the bottom. We picked the icon for it on the left. So let's go into service inquiry. We can see that there's already one there that's been brought back. Remember, we defined a filter, so that must be one owned by us. We got the big plus symbol there as well, and that's for add-in. So let's click add, and we should see our new fields, and we do. So remember, we got brief description there. Remember, that's the labels that we tied. If I move out of there now, you'll see that's the validation that we put on. It's saying the field is required. If I just put a sample, you can see that the validation message has switched there, saying it should have at least 8 characters. Sample description. Okay, you can see here that we've got our types. It's defaulted to not sure. Probably should order that differently and put the default one at the top. Let's pick tenancy. Okay, details. This is some sample text. You can see that the lines turn green now, and the submit button has become enabled. We're going to submit that. That's got a confirmation message at the bottom there telling us it's gone through. That will go through and create the record in Dynamics, and the page is refreshed, and you can see there that our new record has come up. There's the icon. Remember, we picked the home for types of tenancy. We can then go in and view the record we've just created. So if we jump back to Dynamics, and here is our new record being pushed all the way through there. You can see sample description, set the customer, that's the my account there for whom I've logged into the application, and we can see all of our details there. So I hope that showed you how simple it is to get a page to collect data and create a record in CRM. Just a simple bit of configuration in Dynamics, and that's now out and live on our customer facing app.